This is Damian Lillard, and you're listening to The Briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to The Briefcase presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Episode 184 of The Briefcase presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. I am Casey Holdahl, and the Portland Trail Blazers won consecutive games for the first time since October by holding on to beat the Kings Thursday night at Moda Center in overtime. Not the most beautiful game for the Portland Trail Blazers, but they were able to get the win nonetheless. We'll discuss that win, also their upcoming game versus the Kings once again, though this time in Sacramento on Saturday. We'll also discuss on Monday the 1999-2000 Trail Blazers team that lost in the Western Conference Finals, 1 quarter away from potentially winning a championship, back in the Moda Center on Monday night for the game versus the Pistons. Very excited about that. We'll talk about that team and that reunion, and we'll also discuss Deni Avdija. All-Star voting is now open, and you should vote for Deni Avdija on this edition of The Briefcase presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Well, while it wasn't an especially good win, it was a win nonetheless for the Portland Trail Blazers, defeating the Kings 134-133 in overtime Thursday night at Moda Center. Will not go down as one of the Trail Blazers' best performances, but sometimes you gotta win ugly, and the Trail Blazers managed to do that Thursday night versus the Kings. They let a 15-point lead slip away with less than 2.5 minutes to play in the fourth quarter, and then did just enough in overtime to come away with the win. Free throws at the end of the game from Deni Avdija being the difference for the Trail Blazers in that one, winning that game at Moda Center to, as I mentioned, win consecutive games for the first time since the last couple days of October. So that was really great to see for the Trail Blazers, even though, again, if you were watching the game in the arena on television, not the best game, I would say, for either team, really. But the Trail Blazers, again, able to pull that one out, which I think you feel good about, because you're not always going to be able to play your best, but being able to get wins when you're not at your best is an incredibly important thing to do over the course of an 82-game season. And it really hasn't been the case for the Trail Blazers for the most part. Usually, unless they play really well or up to and including their best, they have a hard time a lot of nights getting wins, particularly against some of the better teams in the league. But that was not the case on Thursday night. Didn't have their best stuff, but able to come away with the win. Trail Blazers now 11-16 overall and 5-6 at home this season. They entered Thursday's game not having played since Sunday. You expect them to maybe be a little, maybe not bringing the requisite energy in the first quarter. And that was something Thiago Splitter talked about in the run-up to that game versus the Kings on Thursday, really telling his team, like, hey, we have to stay sharp. We're coming off a win, and that's great. We got 3 days off to work on things. That's great. But we have to be ready to go in this game. We can't have any kind of let up. We can't relax. We are not good enough to relax. No team really is in the NBA because everyone can play, but we're especially not that team. And you wish it hadn't gone the way that it went, particularly in the first quarter, but it did go that way. Blazers gave up 40 points in the first quarter to the Kings. If that's not their worst mark thus far this season, it's got to be somewhere close to it. They stiffened up in the second, holding the Kings to 20 points on 39% shooting in the second quarter, though they would just shoot 29% in the third quarter to go into the fourth, trailing 83-82. Though, I mean, again, in the first 3 quarters, watching the run of play, I did kind of assume the Trailblazers were eventually going to put it together a little bit and pull away. And that is what they did in the fourth quarter. They outscored the Kings 25-6 to take an 18-point lead with 5 minutes to play. At that point in time, you feel like Trailblazers probably got this thing squared away. Kings missing a bunch of players. Blazers obviously also missing a bunch of players, but had become accustomed to kind of playing that way. The Kings probably somewhat in a similar situation, but no Domantas Sabonis, no Zach LaVine. So you figure you get up 18 with 5 minutes to play versus the Kings. You can't let up, but you figure you got a pretty good chance to win that game. And I don't know if the Blazers let up. There were a couple possessions specifically where it did feel like they were just kind of putting a shot up. Didn't really feel like there was a whole lot of rhyme or reason to the offense they were running at some point in times in that fourth quarter. And when you do that, you leave the game open for your opponent, and the Trailblazers did exactly that. They missed shots from the field, and they missed a bunch of free throws. That's the other part too. Didn't want to mention it because the Blazers have been much better with it as of late, but the free throw shooting Thursday night versus the Kings, very much one of the reasons why that game went to overtime. If Shaedon Sharpe hits a couple free throws, if Donovan Clingan hits a few more free throws, that game probably goes Portland's way in regulation. Wasn't the case in that one. And the Blazers, as we've talked about a couple times, one of the best teams shooting free throws in wins and one of the worst teams shooting free throws in losses. And the disparity between their percentage in wins and losses is, at some point in time, it was the second largest disparity, I think actually only behind the Kings, surprisingly enough, or not surprisingly enough, but coincidentally enough, I should say. So the Trailblazers don't do what they need to do in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. I believe they were up 15 with about 2 minutes and 30 seconds to play in the fourth quarter. And again, you feel like at that point in time, like, hey, we haven't played an especially great game, but we're going to get this one. We've got a pretty good lead. All we got to do is score a few more points here, and we're going to be just fine, even if it's not going to look especially great. But they were not able to score a few more points when they really needed to. Blazers leave the door open just a crack for the Sacramento Kings, and they end up walking through it. They score 14 straight points and go on a 24-6 run, capped by DeMar DeRozan 3 with 8 seconds to play to tie the game at 115. That would send the game to overtime. Blazers do pretty well in the overtime, just kind of like they did throughout the course of the game, or really in the kind of the beginning of the first quarter, I would say. A lot of similarities between the beginning of the overtime and the beginning of the fourth quarter for the Trailblazers. They shoot 75% from the field, take a 6-point lead with 33 seconds to play. And once again, you kind of figure, well, not the best game, but they are going to get this one. But they miss free throws and they turn the ball over. Inbounding the ball in that game, particularly late in that game, was a real issue for the Trailblazers. A lot of that, Toumani Camara fouled out about midway through the fourth quarter. He is kind of the team's inbounder, and it showed that he was not available in that game, particularly late in the fourth quarter and overtime. DeMar DeRozan scores the next 7 points after the Trailblazers are up 6 with 33 seconds to play. He gets a 3, 2 free throws, and a turnaround mid-range jumper with 4.4 seconds to play that gave the Kings a 133-132 lead. Blazers have no timeouts, so they don't really have a whole lot of options. They inbound the ball to Deni Avdija, gets up the court, does a fine job of getting at least in position to take a long 2. Shot doesn't go. Buzzer sounds. Everyone assumes the game is over. Not so fast. Officials call a foul with 1.5 seconds to play on Russell Westbrook. Deni Avdija goes to the line to shoot 2 free throws. He makes both of those free throws. Kings also don't have a timeout with 1.5 seconds to play. They get the ball to half court, basically get a heave up, and actually a pretty good looking heave at that, but it does not find the mark. Trailblazers escape with the 1-point victory, 134-133. You won that game even though you weren't at your best, which you're going to have to do at some point in time if you're going to have success in the NBA, and Trailblazers were able to do that Thursday night. Would have been much better if they were able just to keep that 15-point lead with 2.5 minutes to play and soundly beat the Kings going into yet another game versus the Kings on Saturday. But it's not a perfect world. Trailblazers are not perfect on Thursday night, but they did get the result nonetheless. Deni Avdija led all scorers with 35 points on 12 of 19 shooting from the field, 1 of 5 shooting from 3, and 10 of 12 shooting from the line to go with 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and a steal in 42 minutes. Shaedon Sharpe, very nice game for Shaedon, once again starting in that starting lineup once again. 11 of 22 from the field, 4 assists from 3 for 26 points to go with 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal in 35 minutes. Shaedon Sharpe did not play in the overtime. A lot of people asked why Shaedon Sharpe did not play. Jago Splitter said that Shaedon was already on a minutes restriction. I'm guessing maybe even 35 minutes was maybe a little over whatever that restriction was, but they did not play Shaedon in the overtime because of that minutes restriction. Nevertheless, Trailblazers able to get that victory. Donovan Clingan, 19 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks in 34 minutes. I'm guessing a lot of what Donovan will remember from that game is the missed free throws, but once again, had a very nice game for Donovan, and they were able to get the win. So you kind of put it in the bin, or at least you move on from the things you didn't do so well, address those things in practice and shoot around and hopefully do a better job versus the Kings Saturday in Sacramento. Jeremy Grant really came on in the fourth quarter and in overtime. 12 of 20 points in the fourth quarter and overtime. 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and a block in 40 minutes. Jeremy also had one of the great two-handed poster dunks that you're going to see in the, I believe it was in the overtime. Fantastic dunk from Jeremy. Again, they don't win that game without Jeremy Grant. I thought he was obviously really important at the end of that game. Made some very important clutch plays for the Trailblazers to help them secure that victory. Toumani Camara, as I mentioned, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists before fouling out in 34 minutes. A very nice night for Toumani. Unfortunate that he fouled out in that game. Got called for a flagrant for just kind of fighting over a screen. I think both teams probably had some beefs in that one, but those things generally even out over the course of the game. DeMar DeRozan led the Kings with 33 points. Russell Westbrook, double-double, 20 points and 10 assists. But as I mentioned, both teams will have a chance to improve upon what they did Thursday night when they face each other again on Saturday night in Sacramento at Golden One Arena. That game at 7 o'clock KTU 2.2, Blazer Vision at 6:20 a.m. Should be an interesting game. I think, it'll be interesting to see, do the Kings come out and really kind of, I think they obviously feel like, Maybe they didn't get the fairest shake in that game, particularly at the end of that game. So if they'll be extra motivated in that one, Trailblazers maybe showing that they're a better team than they showed in that win. Maybe they come out and have a better performance. Who's to say? But either way, interesting that both those teams will be playing once again on Saturday. I thought it was pretty funny too that before the game, Thiago Splitter was asked how he felt about playing consecutive games. He's like, yeah, I don't really like it. Like, I'd rather the games were spaced out a bit. And then after the game, he's like, yeah, well, I guess I'll say I do like that we're playing the Kings once again, because I'm sure there's a lot of things that the Blazers would like to address in that game. And what better way to kind of work on the things you would like to get better at that you saw on tape versus one team by playing that team once again a few days later. So check that one out. Saturday night, a big sports night. Obviously, Ducks playing in the playoff. Portland Trail Blazers also 7 o'clock for that one as well. I think probably some other playoff games too. So a very a dense sports weekend for all of you out there. Get that Christmas shopping done, that holiday shopping done, and then watch your Trail Blazers at 7 o'clock on Saturday. Well, after the Blazers play the Kings in Sacramento on Saturday, they head back to Moda Center where they'll play their next 5 games at home before a end of the year 3-game road trip. And in that first game versus the Pistons on Monday, the Trailblazers hosting the 1999-2000 Trailblazers team that made a deep playoff run to the Western Conference Finals. Maybe one of the most famous, probably maybe the most famous Trailblazers team other than the title team that went to the Western Conference Finals, was 1 quarter away from moving on to the NBA Finals, only to be shot down by Kobe Bryant, Shaq, the rest of the Lakers, to lose that series 4-3. Blazers wouldn't win another playoff series for 14 seasons after that loss to the Lakers. That team really never probably got the love they deserved. And, obviously a lot of the jail Blazer stuff that I think in retrospect, a lot of us realize, if we didn't realize it then, which a lot of us did, that it was pretty BS. Being able to put that stuff in the past and celebrate that team, it's been a long time coming. It's great the Trailblazers are finally able to do that, and they will do that on Monday versus the Detroit Pistons. That team, headed up by Mike Dunleavy, went 52-23, 3-1 versus the Timberwolves in the first round. That was back when it was best of 5. Bring back best of 5 NBA. You won't do it, but best of 5 is a better first round. Then 4-1 versus the Jazz, and then lost to the Lakers. As I mentioned, 4-3. Lakers would go on to win the championship. In that fourth quarter, probably the most traumatic fourth quarter in Trailblazers history. I was a 20-year-old in college at the time. One of my worst sports memories, one of my worst sports nights, I would say. Trailblazers coming so close to having a chance to play for a championship and falling 1 quarter short, even though they were up considerably in that quarter. Trailblazers, as I mentioned, go 52-23 that season under Mike Dunleavy. And I'm just going to run down the roster here real quick because it is such a stacked group of players. Greg Anthony, Stacey Augmon, Brian Grant, Gary Grant, Antonio Harvey, Joe Klein, Jermaine O'Neal, Scottie Pippen, Arvydas Sabonis, Detlef Schrempf, Steve Smith, Damon Stoudemire, Rasheed Wallace, Bonzi Wells. Hard to imagine a better collection of players. Unfortunately, just not able to get over the top. And as I mentioned, that team, they would lose in that Western Conference Final and then would not win another playoff series until the Houston Rockets, the Dame .9, if I'm not mistaken. So it just goes to show that you can get so close to reaching the top and then you don't make it. And then the assumption is like, well, we'll just be able to get back there next year, or where things are working well, we'll be able to get back. Sometimes you are not able to get back. That Portland Trailblazers team not able to get back. They were, I believe they got bounced in the first round the next year, maybe even swept. And then that's when everything kind of got blown up at that point in time. Have not reached that level since, though Trailblazers do get back to the Western Conference Finals a few seasons back versus the Warriors. That did not go Portland's way either. But really great. We're getting a chance to get these guys back and celebrate them. I know they have some players and coaches who are definitely locked in. I think they're still hoping that a few might show up, but it's going to be a really good group of players and coaches. I don't want to spoil any of the surprises, and just in general, you never know what can happen in a couple of days. So I don't want to say necessarily who is confirmed and who's going to be there, but it will be a very good group of players. I think if you're going to be in attendance, and if you aren't in attendance and you want to get a ticket, I would definitely say do so now, because it's going to be a pretty fun night. Members of the team and the front office will be in attendance and receive special recognition at halftime throughout the night. Tribute videos from that era will play throughout the arena, bringing back memories of iconic victories, big plays, and community outreach. Fans should arrive early to receive a special placard upon entry to Moda Center featuring an official team photo. Definitely going to get one of those for the podcast set here. Graphics throughout the arena and game broadcasts will pay homage to the turn of the millennium, while DJs throughout the arena will spin tunes reminiscent of the early 2000s. Yeah, that's Y2K, I guess, too. It was an interesting time in Portland, and unfortunately, glad that the entirety of society didn't collapse under Y2K, but also would have been nice for the Trailblazers to get to the NBA Finals. Fans are encouraged to wear their favorite Blazer gear to the game and visit entry A18 to capture a special photo in the 360 photo booth, showcasing their style to friends and family while creating timeless keepsakes. Definitely going to be a fun game. As I mentioned, the team has really gone out of their way over the last couple seasons to try to bring former players and coaches back into the fold. Not really sure exactly why that didn't happen before, but who cares? It's happening now, and that is a great thing. And it's been awesome to see a lot of the former players come back and get celebrated. And I remember too, and I think I mentioned this before, when Arvydas Sabonis came back, whatever that was, over a decade ago, when he was made it into the Hall of Fame. And I just remember in talking to Arvydas how he felt like he had let the city down, and why maybe he was kind of reluctant to come back because, with the way that things went at the end, he just felt like, I think he felt like he was a little ashamed that they weren't able to do more, which is ridiculous. Like, that's not the way any former players should feel. They're beloved in this community. Fans want them to be a part of this community. They want to see them as often as possible. And so, hopefully this reunion and getting these guys back in town, a chance to maybe kind of heal some of those things and really kind of develop some relationships or build on some of those relationships that have fallen by the wayside over the last decade for whatever reason. So either way, Detroit Pistons, Monday night, 1999-2000 reunion. Should be a great night in arena and on the broadcast. All kinds of fun stuff coming up. I know they're gonna be out in the community too a little bit before. I'm sure they're gonna probably do a tour of the practice facility. I've heard they're visiting some of their old favorite haunts here in Portland, so that should be pretty fun as well. But either way, I'm just glad that the team has really gone out of their way to try to welcome back former players, and I think it's an awesome thing to see. As someone who loved those teams when I was younger, I'm really excited to have these guys back, both as someone who covers the team and as someone who's been a fan of the team for a long time. So, I think it's great. It's going to be a great night. I know a lot of really great players are going to be there. I think people are going to be really happy with some of the folks being back in the building, and there might even be a few surprises too. Again, like sometimes, guys don't confirm until late and they show up and you didn't even know necessarily they were going to. So I am curious to see the entirety of who all shows up, but I know it's going to be a great group. It's going to be a great night. And if you want to check it out in person, go to trailblazers.com, get some tickets for that game versus the Pistons. And also, Detroit Pistons, a pretty dang good team, a team that's definitely worth watching. And at this point in time, there's no point in trying to predict or say anything about injuries at this point, particularly with guys like Drew Holiday and Matisse Thybulle. Tiago gave us just a little bit of an update that both those guys are getting better, but there's nothing to report. And a lot of it is not necessarily going through practices, but seeing how their bodies respond after they're in those practices. I think both those guys have been doing more as of late, but not sure what their status is going to be going forward. And at this point in time, like, I don't have anything else to say about it. Like, they'll play when they'll play. The Blazers could use them. It would improve their chances greatly if they're able to get those guys back. I'm sure those guys want to get back out there with their teammates, but they have to wait till they're healthy. So will that be on the Monday night game versus the Detroit Pistons? Who's to say? Obviously, it'd be very helpful because the Pistons, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, Trailblazers, going to have a difficult time in that one, even with their full complement of players. But definitely a winnable game for the Trailblazers, and the first game of a back-to-back. The first game, as I mentioned, to start a 5-game homestand. First start out, as I mentioned, with the Detroit Pistons, and the next night playing the Orlando Magic, another very good Eastern Conference team. Then they have Christmas Eve and Christmas off, and then the day after Christmas hosting the Los Angeles Clippers. That one on Prime Video, 7 o'clock start time for that one. Sunday, 3 o'clock start time, another Sunday family fun day versus the Boston Celtics. 3 p.m. start time for that one on Sunday, December 28th. And then that goes into the second night of a back-to-back versus the Dallas Mavericks. 7:30 start time for that one on NBC and Peacock. And then that leads into a 3-game road trip to start 2026. Blazers versus the Thunder, on New Year's Eve, then face the Pelicans once again in New Orleans, January 2nd, and then finish up that trip once again with another back-to-back versus the Spurs in San Antonio on January 3rd. So 3 back-to-backs coming up here over the next couple weeks for the Trailblazers, including 2 on this homestand coming up. So a chance to play a lot of games and hopefully get some things right for this Trailblazers team. Maybe, as I mentioned, winning consecutive games for the first time since the end of October. If they're able to get that one versus the Kings in Sacramento, that's going to be a difficult game, particularly with the way the game in Portland went. I'm expecting to get the best effort from the Sacramento Kings. But the Blazers are able to win that one. That'll be 3 straight for the Trailblazers. Again, something they haven't done since the end of October. Going into a 5-game homestand, it'd be very nice if they had a little momentum going into that one. And particularly, it'd be really nice if they had a little momentum going into that game versus the Pistons on Monday, since the 1999-2000 team will be in attendance. It'd be really nice to get a victory in front of those guys. So it should be a fun one. Monday night versus the Pistons, 1999-2000 team reunion. If you're not going to be at Moda Center, check it out at 7 o'clock, KATU 2.2, Blazer Vision, 6:20 a.m. And finally, voting for the 2026 NBA All-Star Game began on December 17th and concludes January 14th at 11:59 Eastern Time. Fans with the NBA app may submit 1 ballot each day via the NBA app and NBA.com. You can also go to Trailblazers.com to do that as well. Additionally, there will be 3-for-1 days for voting, in which votes count 3 times on December 21st. That's coming up here very soon, December 25th. Obviously Christmas Day, December 30th, January 7th, and January 14th. The 2026 All-Star Game will feature a new format in which 2 teams of U.S. players and 1 team of international players, known as the World Team. Those teams will compete in a round-robin tournament featuring 4 12-minute games. The 3 teams will each have a minimum of 8 players. As in the past, 24 NBA All-Stars, 12 from each conference, will be selected as follows. The 5 players honored as starters from each conference will be selected by fans. That's 50% of the vote. Current NBA players, that's 25% of the vote. And a media panel, which is also 25% of the vote. And the 7 players honored as reserves from each conference will be selected by NBA head coaches. So you vote for starters, and then the NBA head coaches fill out the rest of the ballots. This year, the All-Stars will be selected without regard to position, which is a smart move. The process for assigning players to the 2 U.S. teams will be determined at a later date. If NBA All-Star voting does not result in the selection of 16 U.S. players and 8 international players, which can include American players with ties to other countries if necessary, which I don't really know what that means, but the NBA Commissioner Adam Silver will select additional All-Stars to join either group to reach that minimum. In that case, at least 1 team would have more than 8 players. So not exactly sure how that's going to work from a voting for starters perspective if you have 3 teams. So I don't know how that's going to work. I think basically they're leaving it a little vague on purpose so that way they could fill out the rosters with players who get the most votes, or I don't know exactly how it's going to play out. One thing I do know is that Deni Avdija deserves to be an NBA All-Star this year. Deni's averaging 25.8 points, which is a career high by almost 9 points, on 48% shooting from the field, 37% shooting from 3, which matches his career high, and 81% shooting from the line, which is also a career high, 7.1 rebounds, 6.3 assists, that's a career high and by a lot for Deni, and 34.5 minutes per game. Also a career high. Deni is one of 4 players in the NBA currently averaging at least 25 points, at least 7 rebounds, and at least 6 assists. Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, and Giannis Antetokounmpo are the others. That's 4 international players right there. All 4 of them deserve to be in the 2026 NBA All-Star Game. If Deni Avdija is doing things that only Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, and Giannis Antetokounmpo are doing, he absolutely deserves to be in the All-Star Game. All 3 of those players are going to be in the All-Star Game. Deni should be joining them as well. Over the previous 5 NBA seasons, only 5 players have played 60 games or more and finished the season with at least 25 points, at least 7 rebounds, and at least 6 assists. Luka Doncic has done it 4 times. Nikola Jokic has done it 4 times. Giannis Antetokounmpo has done it twice. LeBron James has done it once. Jason Tatum has also done it once. All 5 of those players were named All-NBA at that season's end. So Deni Avdija, through the first couple months of the 2025-26 NBA season, is in that conversation with averaging at least 25 points, at least 7 rebounds, and at least 6 assists. Once again, all those players just mentioned are absolutely going to be in the All-Star Game. Jason Tatum's not because he's injured, but he would if he wasn't injured. Deni Avdija deserves to be there as well. He has scored 20 or more points in all but 5 games this season and 26 of his last 31 games dating back to last season. I think you can make that 27 now with his performance versus the Kings on Thursday. He's got 21 games, now 22 games of 20 plus points this season, and that's tied for 4th most in the NBA this year. Versus the Oklahoma City Thunder on November 30th, Deni became just the 3rd player in Trailblazers history to record at least 500 points, at least 100 rebounds, and at least 100 assists over the course of the first 20 games of the season, joining Clyde Drexler, who's done it 3 times, and Damian Lillard, who has done it twice. Deni Avdija absolutely deserves to be one of those 8 international players at the 2026 NBA All-Star Game. And I think maybe I mentioned this on the last edition. Initially, you hear that they're going to have an international team that's going to be good for Deni. And then you start counting it up a little bit, and with as strong as international players are in the NBA this season, I think that maybe actually hurts his cause a little bit because there are so many great international players in the NBA. Long story short, there's a lot of great talent in the NBA from overseas. Deni Avdija is absolutely one of those players. I know that Tom Haberstroh has come up with some stats recently, or not come up with the stats, he's found the stats that basically show that players who have done what Deni is doing so far this season have never not made the All-Star game. Deni Avdija should not be the first player to put up those kind of numbers and not make the All-Star game. The Trailblazers are able to win some more games going forward. That's definitely going to help his cause. You voting for Deni Avdija would help his cause as well. Go to NBA.com, NBA app, Trailblazers.com, vote for Deni Avdija for NBA All-Star and for various other Portland Trailblazers you feel like should get rewarded as well. The Trailblazers this season without Deni, it's who's to say where they would be at. If Deni wasn't playing at this caliber, I don't know how many wins Trailblazers have. They certainly don't have as many as they have right now. I don't know how close they are even in a lot of these games, the losses that they've taken. I don't even know if they're able to keep those games close without Deni Avdija. Deni has given this team a chance to win on a night-to-night basis, even enduring incredible amount of injuries. Deni Avdija, and it's not just Deni, Jeremy Grant, Toumani Camara, Donovan Clingan, up and down the roster, guys have been making plays. Guys have been really stepping their game up. But Deni Avdija has been the main driver of that this season. He's got the stats. He's got the game. International player deserving of that recognition. Hopefully Deni Avdija is able to get that recognition this season as an NBA All-Star because he absolutely deserves it. Already the odds-on favorite, if I'm not mistaken, to win Most Improved Player, or at least he should be if he's not already. You don't have those kind of things locked up in mid-December, but if Deni plays anywhere close to the way he's played throughout the rest of the season, that he's played throughout the first 2 months of the season, I think you absolutely assume that he is going to be the favorite for Most Improved Player, and he should absolutely be one of the favorites to make the NBA All-Star Game this year. Again, when you start counting up the international players, it starts to get pretty dicey because there's so many great internationals, but also you kind of assume too that, as I mentioned, reading off kind of the press release there about how the NBA is going to put the teams together, I think they're going to have to do some juggling. They're probably going to have to add some guys. There's always injury replacements as well. So that's obviously something to consider, though you'd rather Deni just get in on his own merits, not because someone else couldn't make it. He absolutely deserves it on his own merits. Whether or not he's able to do that, it's going to be tight. But one thing you could do in helping the cause is voting for Deni Avdija. Vote early, vote often, vote on the days where your vote counts for 3 votes instead of just 1. Make democracy work, folks. It doesn't work without an engaged citizenship. Be that engaged citizen. Vote Deni Avdija for 2026 NBA All-Star. And that's going to do it for this edition of The Briefcase. Thanks so much for joining me, as always. Back next week with new additions. As I mentioned, 5-game homestand coming up after the Trailblazers face the Kings in the run-it-back game Saturday in Sacramento. 7 o'clock start time for that one. 2.2 Blazer Vision. 6:20 a.m. leading into a 5-game homestand over the Christmas holiday Hanukkah week. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you to the folks at Spirit Mountain Casino. I'm Casey Holdahl. Go Blazers.